to MyGuy review of Avengers Endgame. Most probably the biggest movie ever released. Had a crazy opening weekend, huge second weekend. Now the second highest grossing film of all time, overtaking Titanic. We watched this. I watched it opening weekend. I think you watched it on the similar sort of time. So it's been a while. So our memories might be a bit phased, and we may not have remembered everything. It is a 3-hour film, so there's a lot to take in for this one. And I guess the first thing is, what was the story? What was it all about, man? What happened?
You're asking me. Oh,
Yes.
My memory is so faded already.
Is intentional.
I've just had 4 days out in a field, so I'm not even in this civilization at the moment. But let's think. Well, obviously it's Endgame. What I thought of it as it's just the sequel to Infinity Wars, which is amazing. So we're just about to see what they're going to do about all these, like, half the population just disappearing into ash. And yeah, that's basically it.
I think you summed it up perfectly there. Yes, it is. It is the sequel.
I can say more if you want. Obviously,
let's start with that much, right? Yeah, it will be spoiling. Yeah. Let's start with basically, as you said, it's a sequel to Avengers: Infinity War, and as someone who's seen all the movies up until this point, I guess you're about 90% in. Do you think you have to have seen the other films? Because without spoiling anything yet, do you have to have seen all the other films or most of the films to try and really enjoy this? Or could you come into this watching the first Avengers Assembled, Age of Ultron, and then Infinity War, and then this? Do you feel like you felt for the characters? Do you think there's enough in just those 4 films, or would you have to see more?
I think you'd be missing a lot, but you could watch it. It is standalone. It does work. It's probably better to have watched Infinity Wars, but to know what's going on. But apart from that, it's got lots of superheroes. I had to wait till the weekend so my mum could watch it as well, because she wanted to watch it. She watched Infinity Wars. She's watched a few of them, but not all of them, and she perfectly enjoyed it. She liked all the action and all the superheroes coming in and stuff like that. So I think you can enjoy it, yeah. But it is very much also, on the other side, it is very much aimed at hardcore fans by putting in lots of things that refer to the whole series, and really, each of those individual heroes as well. That it is made to really make proper fans happy as well. So what do you think?
I felt you had to have seen stuff. We'll get into it in the spoilers, but because there's a talking raccoon in this, which may or may not make sense.
Good point.
There's this the start of the film, and it's not quite a spoiler because it's almost in the trailer as well. When Thor's there, Captain Marvel's there, and you're like, who's she? Where's Carol Danvers been? I mean, if you haven't seen the post-credit scene, you won't understand how or why she's turned up now. Also, you might not understand her powers because you've not seen Captain Marvel previous to that.
I've seen Captain Marvel would be useful.
Also, there's a lot of kind of reliance on Scott Lang's character. So having seen the previous Ant-Man films, it kind of helps to understand this quantum realm a little bit more. I think Thor: The Dark World, Captain America: First Avenger, and Iron Man 1, I think, are essential viewing for this one, as well as kind of Endgame, because they're the ones that kind of get referred to more in the movie. So for me, I think even at the end, when you see stuff happen, I think it's better to have seen a few of the films to see why these people are there, because there's a lot that happens and there's no explanation. It's just literally the aftermath after Infinity War, after the snap. And let's just crack straight into the story. We're not going to tell you who this person is, how they're connected, why is there a talking raccoon, why is this shipping village the way it is, and who's in charge, who's that guy playing Fortnite. None of that's explained. It just gets straight into it.
I mean, you've seen some of the series as well, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., things like that, haven't you?
I've seen Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Which I haven't.
Season 1. That's about it.
Like, because I've seen all the movies, and I
Yes.
obviously know the people from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. a bit. I haven't seen that. But still, you're more of an expert on this stuff. You sort of know where everything comes in. So for me, even though I recognise things, some of the, I sort of jumble it together because I don't have the best memory for like absolute locations. And, oh, this happened in this Avengers movie and this happened in that Avengers movie. So for me, I have to sort of piece it together. So end up more in the middle, I guess.
So talking about this film, I think similar to the last one, what they did was really good. Was with the trailers, they gave very little information away. They also CGI people out of the trailers, so you couldn't work out who was where. And they just gave us clips. And so when you went to watch the film, for myself anyway, I went in not anticipating anything, and I was really surprised kind of where the story went. And I think they did a great job with the marketing. And I think similar with Infinity War, where there's that shot of Hulk running with Cap and Black Panther, but everyone who's seen the film, spoiler alert, Hulk isn't really in the kind of action sequences or any of the action beats after the very first 5 or 10 minutes. He's just then Bruce Banner. And I think I love that. They just put a shot in there which is nothing to do with the film, throw you off the scent. And I think they've done a great job with this. For me, a lot of people have said, I anticipated this or I was expecting that. I just went in with a blank slate and just let the film wash over me.
I mean, the Captain Marvel thing we saw at the end of Infinity Wars, like that seemed like it was going to be a big plot point. Spoiler alerts now, really spoilers, but it's not. She's not a big deal. She only turns up a little bit, and then someone did actually say to me, "Oh, it might actually be something to do with Ant-Man." Before I'd been, maybe a month before. I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's a good point." That kind of. And even that, it kind of is the case, but actually it's not really much to do with him either. It's the fact it was his idea.
Yes.
It's basically it.
Yeah, because I think at the end of Avengers Infinity War, the snap happens, then the events of Ant-Man and Wasp kind of happen in parallel or maybe just slightly before. And then, obviously, spoilers for everything now. So he then goes into the quantum realm where Michael Douglas, Michelle Pfeiffer, and the Wasps are outside, and they send him into the quantum realm, and then everyone's turned to dust. Now, it's not, I can't remember unless it did come up how he came out of the quantum realm by himself, but finally, that's the cat or something, right? It's something hit the machine, and he came out of the quantum realm. It's been 5 years. Time elapse, and so let's just spoil the whole film now, right? So the movie starts with
time heist.
It's a time heist, basically. The movie
should have been called Time Heist. Let's spoil it, so there you go.
Nice. But the starting, all that bit about Iron Man, I think that's the one thing I didn't like was, the very first trailer where he's talking to his little the Iron Man helmet, and he's saying to Pepper, "Oh yeah, we've only got this much oxygen left, and this things, and all hope is kind of like deteriorating." But in the second trailer, you see him wearing that outfit, which is the Time House outfit, and they're walking together. And I think they spoiled that. They should have just shown another scene or another clip elsewhere, and in the trailer they shouldn't have shown Iron Man back on Earth. So then you just know Iron Man's going to be rescued. He's coming back to planet Earth, and the only person who can rescue him would be Captain Marvel, because you see that scene with Thor in the trailer again where he pulls Stormbreaker, and she doesn't flinch, and he goes, "I like this one." So you piece together tiny bits, which was a little bit annoying, which they did such a good job hiding everything. So they come back to planet Earth. They go find Thanos, and they actually beat him to the point where Thor just chops his head off, and that's the end of the film, and that's the start of the film as well.
That's it. It only lasts about half an hour, isn't it?
It was about 10-20 minutes in.
I was expecting it to be longer.
I thought it was 3 hours as well.
That was the end, right? I walked out. I was like,
there was a 2.5 hour post credit scene after that, but that was pretty much it. Yes.
Let's talk about that then.
So, as in that kind of fight as well, you can see how strong Captain Marvel is. But Thanos can really stand up to her, even though he's not got the stones anymore.
Yeah,
He can
I
take those
found that a
energy
bit.
blasts.
I don't
I
know
thought he
what order we want to
seems,
talk about the problems, but
yeah. So he seems stronger, right? Without his
yeah,
without the Infinity Gauntlet and without the stones, he seemed like he was a real threat to her for some reason. Like
yeah,
her powerful beams and things that could blow up ships and stuff, and he was just standing up to all of that.
yeah. She's overpowered anyway. That's one issue. And the other issue is, yeah, they all try to team up so hard to defeat him, but really he's not got the Infinity Stones yet, so they will just crush him. Like
Yeah,
he only needs two super overly powered superheroes to finish him off, and that sort of let down the whole fight. I feel like a better idea for that ending would have been that he relied more on his armies, and that all their power would have had to have gone against his armies, because he was in a different state then, obviously. Whereas in Infinity Wars, he had his armies, but he didn't have to rely on them because he had the Infinity Stones.
yeah,
But it was kind of a nice fan service big fight at the end, so that's why it works.
yeah. I think you need that big kind of battle to kind of
Yeah.
like just because you need all the characters to come back. And also like when he snaps, obviously he in Infinity War he destroyed half the universe, right? So you got half the people who disappeared, half were still living on. But why didn't he bring back his own Dark Order? Because then he could be just chilling, and the Dark Order could go out, make him sandwiches, go do some farming, and just really
Yeah.
enjoy life with these four people who could
Yeah.
do whatever he wants. So
I
I
wonder
don't
what happened to half of his Dark Order then.
Yeah, well, they all
Was it
died, but
evil?
he could have brought them back to life, right? Using the
Well,
Infinity
that wasn't
Stones.
fair. I thought he was all about fairness anyway,
Oh
so he would
yeah,
have
that's
only
right.
destroyed
Yeah,
half of them.
yeah. Oh no, but
But they've all
the
gone
Avengers,
crazy.
destroyed them in Infinity War.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So yeah,
So he
so
could have
then
brought them back. I see what you mean.
so that happens. Then we have the 5-year time jump, which we'll talk about right at the very end, because I think it may or may not kind of cause issues in the Marvel cinematic universe going forward. But then we have the 5-year time jump, and everyone's trying to move on. They're kind of coping with the issues from Infinity War and
Yeah.
what's happened. And they're talking to the various. This is a point where I think if you've seen the films, it's better, because you see Okoye, you see Carol, you see Captain Marvel with a new haircut, you see Raccoon there, you also see Rhodey, and they're all talking to Black Widow, and they're all talking about what's happening and what the rest of the universe and stuff is. I think if you've seen the previous films, you've got a bit more affiliation with those characters, and even when Rhodey talks about Clint.
Yeah, because they seem to be really trying to put the full weight on you, aren't they?
Yeah.
But it's quite a long sequence of just the aftermath of Infinity War that really trying to make you feel how big a deal this is for everyone. And
I mean,
I wasn't expecting that so much, but in a way it was good that it built up the stakes a bit more. And
it's seeing how they actually lived with the consequences of the snap.
Yeah.
Because
I did enjoy the therapy group. That was cool. I like that. A bit of realism.
Because Avengers, assembled, despite all that was happening in New York with all the Chitauri, they still won against Ultron and all those robots that Ultron was throwing at them. They still won Civil War. They've always won at the end of it. So by the end of Infinity War, it's the first time they've lost, and they're grieving over it. And it shows most with Thor when they go to the shipping village, which is now Asgard, and he's just sat there drinking, and he's there with Meek and Krog from Ragnarok. So and Valkyrie was there. It was really funny, right? So when they just
if you haven't seen the films, that would be really weird.
Yeah, these two just sat there playing Fortnite, which is weird, because in 5 years from now, would people still play Fortnite? Will they not be on to the next whatever game is out? Fortnite's like it ain't gonna last forever, is it? Not 5 years.
Yeah, they'll be the next Fortnite. But yeah,
well, I guess if you lost half the developers in the world and half the
Yeah.
testers and half the distribution rights of companies, I
Yeah.
guess the number of video games being released would have halved.
Yeah, that would be a tragedy.
Yeah,
we need to do something about this.
We lost some good people.
We need a time heist. No more GTA 6 coming out. No.
Exactly. Rockstar lost half of their team, everyone
gonna
who's
be
working
rubbish.
on it. Oh, yeah, that was funny as well, and seeing him kind of coping with this aftermath of what he
Spoiler
realized
alert.
was his actual mistake. Because when in
Yeah.
Infinity War, when he had Stormbreaker in his hand, he even Thanos said he should have gone for the head,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
he's lived with that consequence since,
Yeah.
and it really shows that he's still grieving, he can't get over that fact.
But nitpicking, they got him onto the ship by saying, "We've got beer." That was a
Yes,
bit, that was a bit
well,
lame.
I mean, he looks like the Big
took away
Lebowski. He
from
just wants.
it took away from that the importance of how devastated and lost he was
Yeah.
by just saying, "Oh, we've got beer." Okay.
I know they should have tried and convince him in a different manner, because that kind of downplays the issues that which is good in superhero films. You don't really see that much, where a character really takes on that kind of burden to say, yeah, it was my fault for doing this, and this is the aftermath, and it's still my fault, and I am drinking, and I've got issues now, and I can't even be the king or the ruler I should be. I really like those bits, but you're right, it just turns around so quickly.
Yeah, I suppose they've only got so much time to fit everything in, and they want to keep it lighthearted as well, because it's so depressing the beginning as it is. So.
Yeah, and it's still there's so many superheroes to kind of service and give everyone screen time, so you can't just concentrate on kind of one character. But yeah, so then after that, obviously he joins the time heist. We see Scott Lang comes back. He calls it the time heist. Yeah, he calls it time heist, doesn't it? And again, once they start the heist, this is where I think it's all fan service, but done in a really, really good way, where now we see a lot more of the previous films, and a lot of characters get closure, which may or may not mean a lot to people who've not been with the franchise.
Yeah,
so when they do,
it wasn't
when they
so
start,
strong for me. So
so when they start the time heist, they got to. So the whole idea is, let's go back in time, take the Infinity Stones as they were at that time, bring them into the present day, undo the snap, and then take them all back and put them back exactly at the same spot.
Yeah.
And I've got a couple of issues with that later, but yeah, put them back and everything will be fine.
So they go
back, and I really like the bit where Eric Bana is talking to the Ancient One again from Doctor Strange. If you haven't seen that, it may not make sense to you. And she does that thing, and she shows him the timeline, and she says, if you take the time stone from here, me now, it will do this to my timeline, and you'll create these multiple ripples and stuff. And then he said, and he explained it, and I think they did such a good job, because there'll be younger viewers in this, there'll be people who don't watch a lot of time travel films or watch loads and always see plot holes, where he just says, I'm going to put it back here so the timeline's the same. So they came up with an explanation and an idea, and they stuck with it.
Yeah, but there was problems with it.
Yeah. Should we talk about time travel in this film? Okay. So what were your issues with?
Well, the issues. I mean, they talk destroy it. I love this film. Let's destroy it. Well, they talk about how Shazam will live again. Future. So it's not like Back to the Future. Things don't just change. Like the time is the way it is. So we've got to do it cleverly. Straight away, there's a problem with that, because any messing with it it wouldn't work anyway.
Ripples in time. Yeah.
It's going to be a problem. But then, but then even the stakes aren't high enough then, because they're going back in time. Any sort of involvement could just rip a hole in everything. Like they need to be returning the stones back into time later on, which is a problem as well. And getting them just in the right place at the right time. There's like the stakes are very simplified to let's just get the stones once they're actually doing it. As the stakes should have been way higher, I think.
Yeah, I think also the things of time travel that don't work for me is so go back to New York. This is the main kind of OG Avengers go back. So we have Hulk, Iron Man, Cap went back there, and they've got the pimp particles again, a reference to Iron Man. So if you've seen the films, you'll understand why. They go back there, and then Hulk smashes up a car, and then he jumps around and does. And I'm just thinking to myself now, back in 2000, whenever it was, if that was my car and all of New York was smashed up, but my car survived, and I'll be getting in my car in the morning, driving off to work, I might be driving to the hospital to take my loved one somewhere, but now I've lost my car and I'm not insured. So that causes a ripple in time. So
Yeah.
if I no longer have my car in that morning when I needed the
Yeah.
car, or it's insured, but I can't get a courtesy car for a few days because Hulk smashed a lot of stuff, how am I getting to work? Like, that could cause major issues in my life, which could then have knock-on effects in the future.
It could ripple through to Ant-Man not getting a suit and none of it happening.
Exactly. It is fun though to go back to the Avengers. If you've seen the first one, see Loki and he takes the Tesseract and he disappears, and then they have to go even further back in time. So now you've got Captain America and Iron Man going back to way old days, and so we see Michael Douglas
pin particles was another problem
to steal the pin particles. I love the fact that they went that far back, and Tony Stark and Howard Stark had that moment, that father and son moment that he was craving so much. So if you've been part of the whole kind of franchise, he's always wanted that, and he got that closure from his dad. And I love that. If you've seen the films, you'll kind of understand why. And I think the other bit that really stuck with me was the Chris Evans, Captain America, where he looks through the shutters and he can see Peggy Carter. And that's the love of his life. And that, she's so close. I mean, he could literally touch her. He's touching distance, but he can't because they're here for the time heist. And it's little things like that. That we'll talk about in the end then. But again, those kind of things you think, if you haven't seen the films, you'd be like, who's he perving on? Who's this old man he's just having a conversation with? Because you even see Jarvis as the driver, and Jarvis is the AI computer that Tony Stark uses, who turns into Vision later on. All those little things. Howard Stark.
You can figure it out.
Well, could you though?
Well, I figured it out, and I didn't really pay attention to the Iron Man movies. I don't like Iron Man or Captain America. So.
Captain Bester.
I'm glad.
So Haley Atwell's there, and you're looking at that, and you think, he's what? That's his sister. That's his girl. What are you thinking? Because you must have realized that's Peggy Carter, right?
Oh yeah, Captain America. Yeah, I understood that stuff.
Yeah, you're like, he's a pervert. He's just
no. I'm big on love stories and romantic stuff, so that was moving for me. But yeah, I knew that was going on with that one. And for his father conversation, I felt that was still a moving situation, even though I didn't really know he had issues of not talking to his dad. I sort of got at that without knowing about it. I could tell from the tone that he was getting closure with his dad.
Yeah, and I think it's such a strong moment for what's to come in the film, especially for that character. And then Thor's journey to go back to the dark world, where Natalie Portman's there, Loki's there. So to see Loki again behind that glass prison, it obviously reminds us back to that film. And to see Jane Foster there, a lot of people will be like, who's she? Why she got the Infinity Stone? Because that was all part of that film. But I think the best moment is that mother and son moment where he knows what's about to happen to his mum, and she says, I don't want to know about that. And they just have a conversation, and he gets what he wants from his mum, right? And that's the kind of pep talk that he needed to get onto the time heist in the first place, instead of, like you said, fear.
Exactly, yeah.
This was a great moment for him. Yeah. And I really like the small moments more than the big moments in this film, where I felt like Thor's character so needed that he's obviously become a reluctant king. He's got all of Asgard, or half of Asgard still, and he didn't want that. He's never wanted to be king, and to have that moment with his mom just before, and to be able to say the things knowing what's going to happen next, I think that was really touching, because I don't know if people hadn't seen the films would know his mom's about to die. Don't know if that's apparent.
They talk about it. They do talk about it earlier on, because obviously I come from a mixed up memory background, so I understood what was going on perfectly well. Obviously I have seen the movies, but I don't remember every little bit of it like you do so much. And yeah, it was totally obvious that she was about to die. They talked about it.
I like that. And then we have the other stone, which was with Peter Quill, which is pretty straightforward. They just knocked him out, stole the stone, and then they were going to head back. And then Nebula gets taken over by other Nebula, which we'll talk about in a bit, because that one's a bit weird. And then you have the Clint and Natasha Romanoff moment where it's the Soul Stone. So to get the Soul Stone, you have to make a sacrifice of something you love.
I forgot about that bit. That was rubbish too.
You didn't like that. In Age of Ultron, there's a moment where they do the flashback. So Tony had a flashback, Cap had a flashback with Peggy Carter, and they're dancing. Thor had that flashback where he sees all of Asgard dead, and they had a Captain Black Widow flashback as well. That Scarlet Witch kind of does the thing to her, and in there they did mention that she didn't have any. As part of this Russian kind of training stuff, they do something to the reproductive system, so she can't have kids. So that moment when she says to him, "Oh, you need to live because you've got kids," and I don't know how you could play the two without kind of. I don't know how you could have done that with either one would have given sacrifice for the other one. It's kind of apparent, but it's like, how do you play that out? So they just basically scrap it out, and one's about to jump over the edge and commit suicide, basically. So the other one can have the stone and actually reverse all the issues and everything. So, and then the aftermath of that, which you did not like, I guess.
I mean, for me that whole fight thing, I just remember it being such a heavy and important moment in Infinity Wars, when Thor
Gamora
gives up his one, the thing he loves most in the world, and that's what you have to give up for the Soul Stone. Whereas this time they're just fighting over who's going to jump off first. So it's like, that's not the thing that means the most thing to you in the world. It didn't quite add up with the original. Like, it was literally just a soul for a soul in the end, which means Thor could have just chucked anyone. I mean, Thanos could have just chucked anyone in the first film in that case. So that kind of messed up the things for me a bit.
Yeah, I think you're right. The impact of throwing over Gamora is that was his daughter that he loved the most. That's the one thing he loved the most in this world. But for Clint, I could see it almost the other way. I could see for Romanoff, Clint would be the one she'd love. She as a kind of, he's invited her to the family. She sees all the kids. She's become the aunt, maybe even the godmother to all these kids. But for Clint, he's got a wife, he's got kids. So what his loved ones have been.
He would have been the better sacrifice, wouldn't he?
But no, if he got sacrificed, wouldn't his loved ones have been? Yeah, you're right. So his loved ones would have most probably been his wife, his 3 kids, maybe the dog. But for Romanoff, it's literally Clint, I guess, because Nick Fury is just her line manager at work, who tells her, go do this, go do that. Her and Cap have a relationship which isn't as deep and as long as the relationship she has with Clint. So
obviously we need him alive to bookend the movie. Obviously has a happy ending. So
because of the sad starting.
Yeah, exactly. He starts it and finishes it pretty much.
Also, because when Scott Lang comes out, he realizes that time in quantum realm doesn't work the same as it does in real world. So he's been in there for a little while the world time elapsed was 5 years. So when he comes out, he goes to see his daughter, who's now 5 years older, and she's a teenager. Everyone who's been snapped, it seems like they don't age, and anyone who's been through the quantum realm, which is their means of doing the time travel, you don't age in that time because the time in there is not the same as it is outside.
That was good because she thought he was gone with everyone else.
Yeah.
And then he turns up at the door.
And she's 5 years older. She recognizes him straight away.
That's a nice
and then it's the Nebula bit, which really, I don't know if I understood it or not, but they obviously use Nebula's powers and Thanos and everyone comes back to modern day. But my problem is when Nebula is explaining to old Nebula is explaining to new Nebula or younger Nebula, you can change, and there are things that can happen, trying to convince her younger version of herself that the path you've taken is wrong, but shoots her and kills her. Doesn't that mean old Nebula dies as well? So if you kill a younger version of yourself in time travel, even in Time Cop, doesn't that mean the older version of yourself dies? I didn't quite understand that.
That would make sense. Maybe she just disabled her and she can reactivate her because she's cyborg. So
but she seems like
maybe
she
she
was dead.
fixes her up, sends her back. But I guess that makes the whole thing a mess, really. Because then they get rid of Thanos at the end by snapping the fingers. So he can't go back and do all the things he's supposed to do. Suddenly it all falls apart. Movie.
So that's the other thing. So coming back to present day, Thanos comes in, Gamora comes in, Nebula, and all of the Black Order and everyone. This is 5 years previous. They all come back, and no, it's 2012 or something. But anyway, they all come back, and he realizes he's got the stones, but now he's in present day, and they kill present day Thanos. So the ripples of that would mean in the past he never got the stones. He never put these things into action, in theory, right? Because of the way time travel normally works.
There is a defense for this, though. There is a defense for this, and that is the snapping of the fingers. Because essentially, when you've got the Infinity Stones, it gives you power over reality and time. So when I'm just thinking this now, when Iron Man snaps his fingers, spoiler, it would
with or without the glove.
He can essentially fix things up to exactly what he wants.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah,
it has power over everything, doesn't it? So I guess that resolved in that.
But if you kill young Thanos in the future by taking him into the future, then literally a month after you took him away, there is no Thanos threat.
But I guess you could snap your fingers. He turns to ash there, but he reappears in the past because you can control bits in time. He does all these things he needs. Does all he needs to do, and then he gets his head chopped off as well, and it all works out. But it does highlight something that I have a problem with this entire movie is Infinity Wars was so well put together and everything made so much sense. It's like I've never seen a film just done so well in that sense, and Endgame just felt weaker on that overall. It just seemed to be a bit patchy and that doesn't really make sense. That doesn't really make sense. Yeah.
I think time travel in all films can be picked apart. That's the problem, because as soon as you go back in time once,
time travel, because it's not really a thing that's possible for us. So it's
exactly.
Always
I mean, I read this thing where Stephen Hawking invited all time travelers to his house for a party, had champagne, bubbly, everything, and he put the notice up a day after the event. So if anyone came, they would have time traveled back in time to attend the party, which I think was super smart. And as we all know, no one turned up, so there is no time travel.
Okay.
So
Resolved.
Resolved.
Shit about his party.
It's Stephen Hawking, man. I'd party with him.
Maybe he pales in comparison when in the future, or maybe the people that are time traveling just don't care because they're all yobs and they're like.
They're not interested. Yeah.
Time drinking. Yeah,
I think time travel has too many ripples, whereby if you take, like, Thanos is out, Nebula came out, and they killed all of that. They killed the Dark Order. The first 2 hours is more kind of the build up, and you have the character, you sewing up all the story ends, and each of the main three Avengers, because Professor Hulk is now Professor Hulk, the other three are kind of getting there. They're all getting their kind of closure. So you get to the point where there's that 2 hour mark is just finished and Thanos is sat, I think, on the stone, and he's got his weapon in his hand, and the three of them walk out, and you get the feeling any one of those three can go now, because they've all had their full character arc in these 21 movies. They've achieved everything they needed to. They've been able to go back in time, talk to a loved one, or in Cap's case, at least Perv on a loved one, and they feel like they've got that bit more closure. So I almost felt that during that, as the three of them walked in, any one of them could go at that point, because I felt like they'd got everything they needed in the first 2 hours of this film. And in case of Thor had gone from kind of really down on himself, blaming himself for this thing, and then speaking to his mum, and now having his final kind of redemption where he's going to beat Thanos for the last time. And I think for him as well, spoiler alert, if he died in this film, you felt like it was earned. Whichever character was going to die, at least from these three, it was earned. Because I felt like there's completed stories now.
Yeah, I wasn't really prepared for anyone dying, but I sort of I think I took this film as just a sequel to Infinity Wars, whereas people that have watched the whole thing, they kind of knew this was actually an end of an era, and that people were going to die. So, I took it a little bit differently. That's what I'm saying there.
and then they just all fight, and I love the bit where Cap picks up Mjolnir, which we saw in Age of Ultron, where he picks up the hammer, and because he's worthy to do so. And I love the fact that he just picked it up and just used it just as any old thing, because Cap is most probably the maybe Captain Marvel exception, maybe, but he's definitely the most purest of heart and most worthiest Avenger of them all. And I love that because they were all fighting away, and there's a moment where it's Thanos and just Cap, and he just beats Cap, and Cap gets up like he always does, like even in Civil War when Iron Man says to him, "Why don't you stay down?" and he gets up again, like he'll take any kind of beating, and Cap just gets up. He's your go-to guy. He's the guy who's going to hit you out of any problems. And I love that he stood up after his whole shield was pretty much battered, and then the rings, the Doctor Strange rings came, and all the passed away Avengers, all the Avengers who was alive, all slowly started to come in. And I think the fact that Black Panther was the first one with Okoye and Siri kind of like made me realize that they watched Infinity War and realized that he's most probably the most bankable character right now out of the three, and so they put him first, and then they started to introduce all the other characters, and then you've got the last hour or so, or 50 minutes, 40 minutes of this incredible action fight, which is just
I take it you enjoyed the
everyone.
Fight,
Oh, I loved it. Yeah,
I'm not big into action.
I compared the kind of Infinity War and this, at least the first 2 hours, as kind of like Kill Bill Volume 1 and then Kill Bill Volume 2, where, at the end of 1, we had the Crazy 88. You had that massive battle between her and all of them. And then you had that moment where her and Lucy Liu had that big fight, spoiler alert. And then we get into Volume 2, and it's more of a kind of character-driven dialogue story where we're kind of tying up loose ends, and you're understanding what had happened to her, why Bill and the rest of them had attacked her, all that kind of stuff, up until the battle between her and Bill. And she tells that kid at the end, she tells the kid, come and find me or something. And I think these first 2 hours were just like that, where all the characters were getting all their loose ends tied up. They're getting their closure. There's redemption for a lot of them. And they had all of that. And then we had the final battle, final action set piece, which was crazy because almost every single superhero
it was crazy,
who had disappeared, everyone who'd still stayed around were there, and they're all just fighting away, and it's amazing. You can see all their powers coming in, just it was amazing.
People flying on Pegasus and shit.
Yeah, that's Valkyrie. Yeah,
wow.
Valkyrie was there as well. There's so many good bits in the kind of, I think, in the final bit, especially when Cap throws Mjolnir in the air, and Spider-Man's got the gauntlet, and he spiderwebs himself to Mjolnir, and he flies across the battleground, but crash lands, and then Captain Marvel turns up, and with her you see Okoye, Siri, Valkyrie, Pepper Potts, Nebula, Gamora, pretty much all the females
at once for no particular reason. They're all in a big pan shot.
I love it.
Why did they all just get up together?
Because they're gonna
women assemble.
That's the Avengers going forward. That's the team.
Yeah, that's cool. It is good, but at the same time, it felt a little bit like it wasn't explained why they're it was obviously like that they were making a point cinematically, but there was no reason for those characters to all be like sprinkled together at one moment.
There was. She even says because he goes because when he handed it over to her, he goes, "Oh, how are you going to get it across the field or whatever it is?"
Yeah.
And then everyone turns up, as in we'll all help, and then every single one of them has their own kind of little action sequence, the Wasp and all of them, and it's really cool, I think. And it's good that Captain Marvel's not in the film much because she is too overpowered. Because even when that ship is firing away, and then the ship changes course, and she just literally just flies into it and just blows it up.
That's her signature move.
And it's the same problem that Justice League had, where they were fighting Steppenwolf, and all of them together could just manage fighting against him, but then Superman came, punched him once, and just flew off. It's too easy for them. But when she's fighting Thanos, and he's got the stones, I liked one bit was when he took a stone out, so he took the Power Stone out, and he punched her once.
With it,
and that wiped her out, and that just goes to show like the strength in one of these stones is even stronger than her. And then you have that moment where Stephen Strange points and he says, "This is the one," because he's seen 14 million versions of this.
The one in a lot, yeah.
And then Cap does his Iron Man does his thing. Now, to you, as you've seen some of this, or you've been through it from the start, the Iron Man death, I think, is kind of, for me, I wasn't really too fussed by it. Like I kind of wanted him to die anyway because I didn't really like his character. Like he started off really good. Like I liked Iron Man 1. Iron Man 2 was more just kind of build up for Avengers. Iron Man 3 was quite good, but Ultron, it was all his fault. Civil War, it was all his fault. He never he never kind of got his comeuppance, and then he finally did, and he did the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah, in this one he does resolve things, which I like, because I hate all that drama stuff between it might be good for some people, but I can't stand all the drama like between the actual Avengers. Like, stop fighting, what are you doing? So it's good that they actually resolve things and they work together as a team in this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm actually kind of sad to see them both go, Captain America and Iron Man, because they did hold things together well, but at the same time they were always my least favorite characters because very arrogant.
Cap's
Iron
not
Man.
arrogant. Oh yeah, arrogant.
Iron Man, yeah, and Captain America's sort of too squeaky clean. Well, in that sense, I think it's just because I'm a Superman fan, and I was like, oh, Captain America wearing Superman's colours. He's got no right. But yeah,
he's wearing American colours. That's
so the Superman
colours.
Red and blue.
Spider-Man wears red and blue. You have no problems with Spider-Man.
No. Well, I'm not big on Spider-Man either, but I do like Spider-Man. I'm just jealous. I'm like, Captain Marvel trying to kill Superman.
So all of that happens. He undoes everything Iron Man does, and then I think, like in the film, I think there's so many good moments, and they're little moments more than kind of the big moments. And there's that scene where, as he's dying, Pepper says to him, "You can finally rest," and that's evident when they're living together, just him, his daughter, Pepper Potts, in a little shack somewhere, and he's now he's given up on the Avengers. He's going, "I'm not worried about this. I'm just concentrating on my family." And then they come to him with the time travel stuff, and he just can't let it go. It just drawed him back in. And I think finally, as Pepper says, this is it now. Now you can finally not worry about anything. You've done everything. I really like that moment.
In that sense, like the fact he even got on board was an automatic sort of signal of his sacrifice. He was saying that I've given up my family I need to do this. I need to bring everyone back. It's not all about me. So that is definitely a redemption arc for him.
And then there's the funeral bit, which everyone's kind of there, and I think it pans out to various kind of characters. And I think Captain Marvel being the last character there, I think the franchise going forward would fall on her shoulders. And with Iron Man,
overpowered, so they'll have to avoid using it. Do you think?
I think
Or
Yeah,
should we get into that in a minute? Like where we think it's going to go? I think
yeah. And then to undo it all, Cap does a time house heist, but undoes the time heist. Now,
Yeah,
a couple of problems
back.
with that is so
he did it all on his own.
The stones, when Thanos gets the Tesseract in Infinity War, he smashes the Tesseract and then it becomes a little stone, which he then puts on his hand. So how does Cap undo that?
Yeah.
How does he turn the stone back into the Tesseract? Or how does it turn it back into what it was before? It's not explained. He just goes back and puts it all back in place.
So that's where you come back to that snapping of the fingers. Really, it should have I'll just reset the stones at the same time, put them in their place with the snapping of the fingers and done. But yeah, he obviously goes back in time, does his thing, and then lives out the rest of his life properly how he wanted to with his loved one.
Yeah, and again, that's weird because Cap goes back in time and he's now changed everything in the past by just being there. Because there'll be two Captain Americas. Captain America will still be frozen in time, and he'll still be defrosted later on.
I guess, but then they've carry on.
But yeah, so then he goes back in time, knowing what we know about all the films. He knows that Hydra have infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D., but he stays quiet about it for all those years and does nothing about it.
I guess he has to avoid changing things. But also, I guess, like, time travel can't be working the same. Like the butterfly effect is the idea. Even like one butterfly can change the entire future. So that can't exist in this world anymore because he would have changed so much. Like you said, just like by being with his wife, and like his wife would have done different things. Maybe she would have given up on her job, and that would have changed loads of things.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like his interactions where he would not have interacted with someone because he wasn't there. So say you're having a rubbish day at work and is the worst thing, and you're like, I'm going to hand in my notice, and then you go off and you start up your own startup, and that becomes Twitter or something. But at work, there's this guy who comes up to you because he's Cap, and he puts his arm around you, he asks you how you're doing. Now you have a great day at work, and you no longer start Twitter.
There's no Twitter.
Ripples through time. It could be so simple, but he's stopped so much. Or he has created so many more problems by doing that. Plus, he knows things of the future. Going back in time.
Yeah.
How can you do it?
Time travel is a problem. It makes everything a mess in this movie. And like you say, I think it is saved by all those little moments. Yeah. Like, if it wasn't for all those little moments that were important to individuals, you would just be looking at it thinking, this makes no sense.
Yes. It's the whole Kyle Reese going back in time to impregnate a woman so she can have John Connor, and then he becomes the savior of the world.
It never really works.
No, but the film is so good. I accept all those flaws, and I'm happy to say, I'd watch it again. I'd be fine with it. I don't have a problem because I feel like it's this like most things are just a film or a sequel or a prequel, but this one movie is 21 movies leading up to this. This is everything that's led up to this. This is the first time there's been an event movie like this in our lifetimes, right? Maybe Star Wars for people older than us previously. Like Force Awakens came out, I wasn't that interested, but this one, because they'd built up so much goodwill from the previous films, I was so on board for this. And then when they started showing bits about the past and they did the time jumps and stuff, I was on board. For me as a fan, I was just like, this is great fan service. I'm sure. I mean, I don't know if other people would have seen those bits and think, why is Renee Russo? How did she die? That doesn't make sense. Who's this woman that he dances with right at the end?
And the quantum realm stuff was good as well. The idea that like the quantum science stuff has a path to time travel is quite realistic as well, because like as we're learning more and more in reality about quantum stuff, like it's kind of crazy, like nothing like our normal reality. So that was a good path into it. The same as Ant-Man's stuff it looks wicked because they know a bit more about quantum stuff. Also I like Doctor Strange, how much they use actual science for that stuff, where sort of the idea of alternate dimensions and things like that have sort of come up in science lately.
Yeah. I think the 5-year jump's going to be quite interesting for the MCU, or with all their franchises going forward. So with Spider-Man, the next film, because Peter Parker was clearly snapped. So half of his whole school were snapped, and the other half were not snapped. And they would have gone back to school, got an education, and maybe even finished their degrees or whatever. I can't remember, he's in high school or something. So he'll have half the people he knew 5 years older than him, and then kids who are 5 years younger than him are starting in the same year.
Yeah, he goes back
and he
to
sees
meet
Ned.
his mate,
Yeah.
So I was thinking that. I was looking at him thinking, does he look 5 years older? I don't know.
Ned looks the same.
So maybe he was snapped as well then.
Yeah, so if it's half and it's randomly done, the next film, I guess MJ wouldn't have aged. He's not aged. Ned's not aged. Flash hasn't aged. So all these people would have been snapped up, and then half of his year have already maybe gone on ahead. So maybe like Michael Keaton, the Vulture, he's now too old to be the Vulture. He's aged 5 more years. Who knows, in prison. Does that mean his prison sentence is less?
Do you think they're going to make a big deal of it and put it in every movie, or just a few movies?
I think in the next one they have to kind of address that, because they're all kids.
Yeah.
For Scott Lang, it's easier because he didn't age, but his daughter did, and that's it. With Clint, he's grown 5 years older than his wife, but his kids and his wife have stayed the same age, so it's not an issue there. Sam, Falcon, the rest of them, they don't really have ages, so it's okay. Okoye has aged 5 years, while T'Challa, Black Panther, and them lot, they stayed the same. So I think for some of the people as adults, it won't be an issue. It's only for the kids.
It gets a bit complicated for casual viewers. Like, I expect they'd have to try and avoid it being an issue too much. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to have any standalone films anymore. It's always got to have this really quite bizarre backstory. Yeah, baggage almost.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they address it in the first one. And I think after that, they've mentioned it and they just move on.
Yeah, what do you think of the new Captain America then, and the new Falcon. How the Avengers are going to go forward?
I'm half and half. I think this movie franchise, up until this point, I was really excited with, because I'm invested in all the characters. I love Cap. I didn't mind Iron Man. I love Thor. I like Black Panther. So up until this point, I was really into it. Now, going forward, you lose two very charismatic characters who built up films upon films, and they've had their character development happen. So now we've got a whole new bunch of people. For me, I'll still watch them. I don't think I'll be as invested initially, unless if the movies that are coming out now are team-up movies. So I do want to see Guardians with Thor. That'd be quite cool. Go out, do some cosmic adventure. And if James Gunn's back, that'd be cool. I think Hulk, he's not going to become the Hulk again the same way. I really liked him in Ragnarok. He was such a fun Hulk. Hulk smashed, he talked, they did everything. Hulk. And now he's Professor Hulk, and I don't think you can convert back to that. So I think he's kind of gone. I don't want to see another Ant-Man movie. It's fine. They're not that good.
I love Ant-Man.
Black Panther.
I love Ant-Man.
I love to see the new Black Panther film. It'd be interesting to see how they do Captain Marvel. Now she's too OP. And I'd love to see Doctor Strange though, because he can go to all sorts of weird realms and stuff. There's a whole heap of stuff he can do. But the other guys, like, I don't really care for Falcon. Like, for a whole movie, that is Falcon and Winter Soldier. I think that'd be might be good, but it sounds quite boring.
Yeah.
And some of the other characters as well. Like, I don't know if I'm invested in seeing smaller. I think I need to see team-up movies and more smaller events leading up to maybe Secret Wars or something.
I think Falcon needs a solo movie to really build his character up, because we haven't seen him on his own properly. So I feel a bit about his character. I think he needs. That's the thing I really love about this Marvel Cinematic Universe, is all the solo movies of smaller characters. So if they throw Falcon into the center of the story, I think I'd be on board. If they don't, and he's supposed to be the captain, I don't think that's going to sell very well.
No, they have to do, but he'll have to team up with Bucky. I think him and Winter Soldier would do a team up, because by the end of the movie they kind of become close friends. Like in Civil War, they hated each other, and I think by the end of this, they're a lot closer. They're a lot more
on the side.
Yeah, and he could be the Captain America and the Winter Soldier, so you could still have their adventures. That'd be.
I mean, you could see their back and forth. That could build up their characters, so we can get to know them. That would be nice. But they need to do that before they do a big Avenger movie again. So because that's the pattern that really works, isn't it? It's like build up the characters and then have a big fight and
big payoff.
It all comes together. Yeah.
But other than that, I'm not really interested in a lot of the other characters. Thinking about, like, I'd see Spider-Man movies. I loved Into the Spider-Verse, so to see where this would go. Tom Holland's doing a good job right now. And then I think they have to chuck in some X-Men and some maybe Wolverine or something. Yeah. Because they own all of that now, so maybe somehow get that involved into the cinematic universe and do something.
Even if they just make some characters we already know more interesting by doing things with them, I think we can get more invested. But like you say, at the moment we're not. It's just kind of like everyone's gone.
Yeah, and they've put out a slate of movies. They've said there's X amount of films coming out in the next few years. I think it was 6 or 8 films. They've not confirmed the titles yet, but looking at the characters left, I'd say Captain Marvel would have a sequel, Black Panther, Doctor Strange, there'll be a Guardians 3, maybe a Thor 4, and then the rest of them, like Tai Chi martial arts film. I don't know if I'm interested in that, because that's the guy from Iron Fist. Maybe a team up between Winter Soldier, Black Widow film. So there's a few ideas, but I don't know because I think 22 films I've done. I've always done it now. It's such a good bookend. I think it finished really well. I loved it, but I don't know.
I want to see the next 22 films. I want to see the big build up to something amazing again.
And then chuck in your Superman.
Yeah, why not? No.
Superman versus the Avengers.
Superman was done in the 80s.
Wow, Richard Donner. Swing and a miss.
Richard Donner, this is a different video, but I just saw the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2. It's amazing. We need to talk about that some other time. At
some point, yeah. I don't know, because I remember watching Superman, and I remember the time travel element. He can just go back in time whenever he wants. There's no stakes. That's the problem.
That's the problem with the Richard Donner Superman 2. But that's for another day.
That's the time heist for another day.
We've just summed up the entire MCU. I don't think we've got time for DC 80s versus Man of Steel. But that would
Man
be great.
Man of Steel was boring as well.
It was pretty bland, wasn't it? The character as well, the Superman. You need Christopher Reeve.
Yeah, or just someone happier. Just someone who wants to save people and do the right thing.
Someone who wants to be super.
Yeah, instead of be super mopey.
Bland man.
Yeah, bland man. So I'd say watch this film. Watch it in IMAX if you can. It is incredible.
Watch it big. Yeah.
I say if you put the two films together as a complete movie arc, it's a 9.5. But as two standalone films, I think they're both 9s. And I love all the little fan services for myself. And I love Happy Hogan right at the very end as well, talking to Tony's daughter, and he goes, "What do you want?" And she goes, "Cheeseburger," and that's throwback to the very first Iron Man. And he goes, "I'll get you all the cheeseburgers you want." And I was like, "Oh, that man cuts deep." That's such a he's taking over the mantle.
Yeah. That is a new meme, isn't it? Cheeseburger. Yeah, I would give Infinity Wars on its own a 10, flat out.
Wow.
So Endgame would get more than 8 if I'm being generous for all the little moments, like you say. But as a whole, it was a bit messy. As a pair, I guess you can average that out to 9 or 9.5, probably, like you say. Same as you, 9.5.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, tell us what you think. Hit us up with your likes and comments and subscribe to more things. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Yes, please. Peace out.